I want to give some kudos to our member WeWorld, our Italian-based member WeWorld, who initiated this publication in 2015 with a fantastic methodology. We've adopted some of that for the Alliance. We're going to move forward with this using the data and the information that's published in this index for our global advocacy efforts, and we're also hoping to raise the profile of a number of things through the index, including the voices of 10,000 children who were interviewed from around the world who are explaining their thoughts and dreams for the future.
The World Index, which we'll be talking about tonight, it's that type of data that ChildFund has brought that is authentic. It's that type of data, just like grassroots-driven organizations and grassroots-driven voices, which really often equates into transformation.
This year's index is a stark reminder of the challenges women and children face globally. It's unacceptable that in 2024, so many still live in conditions where their fundamental rights are merely aspirations, not realities. The index is a tool for empowerment. By identifying the gaps, we illuminate the path forward. We must use this data to advocate for policies that protect and promote the rights of every woman and child.
The report, which I appreciate very much, highlights the violations across a large portion of children's rights: civil, political, cultural, social, and economic rights. And it is really the acknowledgement that all the rights have actually equal importance and weight for all of us.
This is not just a collection of statistics, as it includes the voices of over 10,000 children. The ChildFund Alliance World Index measures the living condition of women and children around the world based on the assessment of the implementation of their human rights, using both quantitative and qualitative data. Let's just take a second to focus on the highlights from our global ranking. First, progress is slow. At the current pace, we were able to calculate that it will take 113 years for women and children to see the rights that we consider in the index to be fully implemented across all countries. Second, human rights are still unmet because 1/3 of children and more than 1/4 of women still live in countries where human rights implementation is only limited or minimal. Then, regional disparities are still stark because while some areas, of course, have shown improvement, countries in West and Central Africa, Latin America, and parts of South Asia have experienced serious setbacks, especially in terms of children's safety, access to education, and we have seen that since COVID-19. Of course, we are still paying that price, and healthcare.
With this index, really applaud the way that it's looking at women and children, and Martina, what you described about these sub-indices and the clusters, the buckets that you have. There's a lot of data efforts. Humanity is projected to have a colony on Mars before we have gender equality. Now, what's infuriating about that, of course, there's multiple things that are infuriating about it, but building a colony on Mars involves doing a lot of stuff. Achieving equality involves stopping doing things you don't need to do. We did an estimate as UN Women of what it would cost across the range of dimensions of gender inequality for middle income, low middle income, and low income countries per year to close that gender gap. And it was 360 billion a year. Now, that 360 billion is a lot of money, but it's about 2/3 of what the world spends on coffee every year. I mean, if you had a choice between, I like coffee, right? But if you had a choice between giving up coffee and living in a gender equal world, which would you choose? I would argue it's not complicated.
One of the things that I loved about this index, and I do think it's unique, I mean, the UN has its measurement tools. We have MIX, the US government has DHS to measure things. The fact that this involves real data points given by young people, you incorporated them. Not everybody knows how to do that. And we often think that we can report on children's issues without incorporating them in data collection.
Based on some of the results, particularly from the consultation, I would train everyone in the world in whole child and positive youth development approaches. I think that 3 of the top 5 priorities that children and adolescents pointed our attention to highlight the need to help people better understand, engage, and support youth. They requested that adults and institutions ask about and listen to their opinions, understand and respect them, and provide guidance and support.
We really would love to continue this partnership with all of you because we don't want the voice of children ever to be lost in the fund. We do have youth ambassadors woven into each of our joint programs. That was deliberate because I've come from UNICEF and I've been taught very well about if you don't demand that they be included and at the table, they will become tokenistic voices.
We need government to be accountable in terms of creating serious, meaningful mechanisms for child participation.
I do want to thank our keynote, our panelists, our moderator, all of you for coming out tonight for the launch of this index. This is just the beginning of something. I think we're taking this data and moving it forward throughout all of our advocacy channels.